Are we on? Are we live? Cool. Welcome to Hemp Up, Blows Down. This is Loner Mob, and today, well, just in the living room. But I had a chance to visit Oregon recently and talk with Paul Murdoch from Horn Creek Hemp, where we had a chance to discuss how 2022's hemp harvest is going for him, or rather, hemp grow season is going for him, as well as the ever-evolving industry. It's a long video, so if you're going to watch it, roll you up one of these, smoke and enjoy, like and subscribe. I truly appreciate it. Let's get into it. And hey, Paul, thank you for the care pack. I like the shirt. Flower's great. Peace. Are we on? Are we live? Cool. Welcome to Hemp Up, Blows Down. This is Loner Mob, and for the third time, we are back in Jacksonville, Oregon to visit Horn Creek Hemp. I'm here with Paul, and how are you doing today?
Good, thanks. How are you?
All right, thanks for having us. Just wanted to ask a few questions and just get a chance to do a check-in and see how things are continuing to go for you in the hemp industry. Yeah. All right. First off, can you tell us where we are?
We are in the catacombs. We're in the storage unit at Horn Creek. This is where we keep all our flour. This was a big walk-in cooler, so we can keep it at 60 degrees and 60% humidity. So it's perfect for storing and curing.
Nice, perfect. And what have we behind us here?
Well, we've got the inventory. This is going to be the stuff that's going out for retail. And so, last year when you came, I think we were doing everything in the bag still, but we like to rotate them through the CureTech drums. So that's a change we made this year. So it's going to be sitting in here right before it gets packaged up and sent out. Okay.
I know many of the users online are familiar with Mylar bags. Can you tell us about the CureTech bins here?
Well, it's something that we experimented with to try to get a better cure, which is all, as you and I have talked about. It's you can do a great job in the field, but if you're not curing it right, then it's going to be lacking. So we can rotate this, we can burp them, we can spin them, we can stack them a lot easier without breaking the flour down. A lot of times in the past when we tried to burp and turn, you'd start to wear the stuff down and break it down into smalls. Yeah. So this lets us keep it in bigs.
Cool. And what kind of strains do we have behind us?
Well, we're trying to get some unique stuff. We had cherry chocolate chip. Unfortunately, that's empty because it was very popular.
Well, I guess it's kind of fortunate then, huh?
Yeah. And then we've got Pine Walker. We've got the Cbdvs. We have some stuff from East Fork cultivars, sour pineapple. We've got Oregon guava and Oregon sweet gum. Those are two nice, kind of new, interesting, different terpene profiles. Okay. And then we've got the good old standbys, the classic stuff. Okay. We tended to get more of the sours from Oregon CBD, and those came out this year a lot denser. Than they were that previous year. They got a new pollen donor, I believe, and the density was much nicer.
Yeah, I noticed that actually. I tried the super sour space candy that you grew for the 2021 season, and definitely much more of a denser flower than the 2021, which was kind of a little airier, larvae. It was one of the things you mentioned before. It was good to really see that in action. One thing you mentioned last time we were here also was with the Cbdv flower, was that it was later to kind of flower. It was more of a staggered release. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that experience was like growing this different cannabinoid?
Yeah, I mean it was very. You learn something every year, and what we learned is that Cbdv is a later blooming flower. So if you logistically need to get it out of the field, then you're going to have a little bit larvier flower. So we worked on that as much as we could, trying to get it planted earlier. This year we planted May 20th, which was sooner, and it turned out, a lot better. So,
cool.
This was.
Oh, that one. Okay. Well, yeah. So that's another sellout.
Bit of a buzzkill.
But a pretty good smell that came out of that bin there, though.
Yeah.
So just what was the experience like as far as customer feedback with the Cbdv strains?
It was mostly about effects. People they report kind of similar to a CBG, in terms of more uplifting, energizing. And so just as we had with the CBG, we have a lot of people blending it, right? So they'll do some key for some flour and just mix a bowl.
Cool, cool. And then just on a personal note, have you tried any of these flowers, or are you part of the smoking consumer, or the more the tincture based consumer? Like, how do you prefer to use hemp?
No, I like smoking it, and I'll blend it. It's kind of like I don't know, um, mixology. For me, kind of dialing in the effects, mixing it with some regular THC. Which is, I think, where THC originated. It's more of a 50-50 blend. But yeah, I'll do, if I just want to relax. I mean, to me, hemp is like a beer, THC maybe like whiskey or something like that.
Cool, cool. One thing to note is this is a big room, and just so for those who are watching right now, right, it's not just this space here. There's a whole other space right there. There's another inventory room right over there. It seems like it's a Horn Creek, as far as I understand, is a family operation. Can you tell us a little bit about that family and everyone that really is involved in making all this happen?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so there's Whitney. She's the grower. She does all the herbal tinctures. She took in addition to just a passion for herbalism, she did an online course for 10 weeks, I think, with Cornell, and just really dialed in. And I think that that's really hugely important. The two pieces that Whitney brings are this intuition about growing, right? So growing is not a recipe. You don't just follow instructions and say, okay, A, then B, then C, then D. You have to pivot the whole time. The plant is acting this way. Okay, we need to do this. And there are so many variables throughout a season: the soil, the weather, the heat, et cetera, if there are any pests. So that is really a skill that I don't know if it can be taught. People get good at it, but that real intuition. And then the rest of us, we're kind of the supporting cast. I fix things, keep things running, do the sales. We've got my daughter Haley, who does all the social media, all the label design, all that stuff. We've got my son-in-law, who does all the crews and the harvest. He manages the fields. And then who am I missing? My daughter Madison, who's cracks the whip and keeps us all in shape, going the right direction. Yeah. So, it's working with your family and having a family farm is one of the most rewarding things. But man, there are some battles, you got everybody's a chief. And but all in all, it's been a great experience.
Well, that's good to hear. And so for newer users, for newer consumers, anyone new viewing this video who's unfamiliar, can you tell us a little bit about Horn Creek Hemp?
Yeah, well, Horn Creek Hemp is kind of the outgrowth of an unpleasant accident I had, where I had a fall and had a broken leg, which wasn't bad, but then I had a complication, which ended up, it was like 15 surgeries and 2 or 3 years in and out of hospitals. And so they had given me a lot of opioids. That's what they did at the time. They sent you home. This was about 9 years ago. And I just couldn't work. I couldn't function. Just that brain fog, and thankfully I didn't ever get too attached to them, as some people did. But so my son brought me some CBD cream, and we were casually involved in the cannabis space, but not seriously. And then when I tried the CBD cream, it was just like magic. I don't know if I told you, but it was a salve. And the pain just stopped. You just didn't notice it anymore. Wow. And so it was like, okay, this is really interesting. And so we grew a small 300 plant initial crop. And that worked really well, and it was exciting, and it was interesting. And the more I learned, the more interesting it was about the plants and how the cannabinoids are being used. And then we grew from there. We sort of organically got bigger and bigger, and now we're sort of backing off. And what the consumers want, we're finding, is much higher quality and much more selection. So this year we're actually, last year I think we were 20 cultivars. This year we're 28, from 4 different genetics providers. So yeah, lot more going on in the field. Yeah.
Just for a total timeline, how many years from your accident till you start Horn Creek Hemp?
That was 3.
3 years. So from 3 years to accident to starting Horn Creek Hemp, and then how long has Horn Creek Hemp been in business now?
Since 2016.
2016. Wow. All right. So
6 years.
nice.
And the years before that, I mean, we were playing with cannabis salves and that sort of thing, and but didn't really dial it in as a business till then. Yeah. So it really was a passionate project,
Really cool. It's really cool to see something that you're so passionate about. Really, really kind of take on to a life of its own.
Well, I tell folks, there are still folks that want to get into it, and it's like, if you're in this for just money, you're going to struggle. You're going to have a hard time because, like this morning, I was out in the fields early because I like it, and if you're doing it for the cash, that wave is gone. Be passionate about it, or else it's just not something that you're going to stick with long term.
Cool. I couldn't agree more. All right, let's go ahead and check out that field.
Yep.
All right. All right, what's going on, everybody? We're back here with Paul. It is a hot day out here in the fields, and well, you're here 5 days a week, 7 days a week,
7.5.
and how's it feel every morning coming checking on these fields?
Oh, it's church. You go through and the plants tell you a story, tell you what's going on, and you can see how they're feeling, and I don't know, it's just like meditation, kind of cruising up and down the rows, checking it out.
Nice. And speaking of plants, tell you how you're feeling. You got some happy plants right behind us right here. What row are we in right now?
Well, this is the second row in on zone 6. This is sour Hawaiian Haze.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, I haven't seen Oregon CBD plants this tall before so far.
They'll get bigger.
Really.
Yeah. I mean, Mike, as you can see from the flower, they're going into flower stage, so they're not really vegging that much anymore, but they'll continue to expand, and that's actually a problem because they get so big that those lower branches, we've got to go by and cut them off so they don't fall down.
Wow. So you mentioned earlier that there's about 28 cultivars growing in the field this year. What are you growing this year?
We're growing from Floyd up at Hoku. We've got a handful of his, Jaffe, Lazy Bone. I'd have to get my cheat sheet back out. We're doing some from Thomas. We're doing Alpenglow, Pink Panther. I think we are doing a Pink Pineapple.
Oh, nice.
And I think we were doing 5 from those guys. East Fork cultivars. We have the Blue Orchid, Sour Pineapple, Oregon Sweet Gum. And then we have some of the Oregon CBD standbys, the CBGs, which people love, the Cbdvs, and then, these guys they're great flower. I mean, I know that they're a lot in a lot of places, but it's good quality stuff.
Can you tell us a little bit about what goes into the decision-making process for selecting the strains that you're going to grow?
Yeah, that's a great question. That takes a lot of work and vetting. We have to like I want to know Floyd, and I want to know Floyd at Hoku, and I want to know Mason and the folks out at East Fork Cultivars, and Thomas at High Alpine Genetics, because we would interact with some folks, and you would get flower. We had one good cultivars, really good cultivars, but 15%, 5 to 15% of them turned hermaphrodite, which means they're not stable. And that's a huge investment, because by the time they turn hermaphrodite, you've already put all the money into it. And you've invested the real estate, so you can't plant anything else there. So that's really the big part. And then you look through their catalog, and mostly what I do, same thing when I go out to eat. It's like, ask the person that does the work, what should I have? What's the good stuff? And they tell you.
Cool. Are you still involved in the wholesale industry as well as the direct-to-consumer business?
Yeah. Yeah.
How has business been in the wholesale industry in comparison versus the direct-to-consumer industry? And has it been a case of consistency, or have things changed over time?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the only way to survive in the hemp world is to pivot, be ready to pivot multiple times a week if you have to. I mean, because things change. Delta 8, really changed the landscape. So we like to do wholesale because that's, what when you grow this much, you need that business. But it's hard to rely upon it because it changes quickly. People want different things. If you're dealing directly with the end user, then you have a much more stable sort of business, and then you know exactly what they want. Right? Talking to you, talking to other reviewers, getting feedback from consumers, they'll tell me exactly, and you guys are where it happens, right? The end user.
You mentioned Delta 8 changing the landscape. How has Delta 8 changed the landscape in the hemp industry for you? And I know last year we were kind of on. Last time we were out here, we were kind of on the fence about Delta 8 and really not really sure where we stood or how we felt safe using it. Has your opinion changed in that over time now? Now that there's been a little bit more time for research on it, and if so, how has it changed?
That's a great question, and there's a lot of thought that goes into that. So that was one of the more lively discussions around Horn Creek Hemp, because there were a couple of our kids who really wanted to do it, and the fact of the matter was, you talk to virtually anybody, 85% of their business is Delta 8.
Wow.
So you're talking about something. We talked about folks going out of business. Delta 8 has kept a lot of them in business. So my view is there's a place for Delta 8. What we settled on was, I told the kids that if they wanted to start a different enterprise and do Delta 8 things there, then that was fine, but I didn't want it under Horn Creek's. So they did something called Underground Owl, and did gummies and that sort of thing. And I think, as you said, this whole landscape is not regulated enough, right? We're putting things in our bodies. Right. So I can test the flower, and I can tell you, okay, good safety panel for the flower. Yeah. And we can do the same for the extracts. I just didn't see that level of it wasn't constant across the landscape, right, with Delta 8 stuff. I think that the good players have now risen to the surface, and folks know where to go to get their stuff. Yeah. Still, I mean, our philosophy is really all about kind of holistic and natural and biodynamic and organic. And doing these isomers, these synthetic isomers in labs just sort of runs counter to that. But if it's that or nothing, and you're in a state where you can't get regular THC, you got to do what you got to do.
Would you have ever have guessed, just in your younger years, that someone would be able to take something like another piece of cannabis and run isomers with it and turn it into almost anything to to this new alt cannabinoid scene? It's very different with are you familiar with HHC and THCO and all those other things? Do you have any thoughts around those products, which are a little bit newer?
I don't, mostly because I stopped investigating. It kind of to me, it falls into the same category of alt cannabinoids. And I don't fault anybody for doing everything they want to with it. It's just not really for me. I mean, I live in a state where we have access to THC. It's not a problem. So I always default to the way it evolved from whoever created this thing did a good job, right? And we'll just leave it as it is. On the flip side, it's done some interesting things. When we were originally making salves, the patients with the most pain found that CBD and THC in relatively even ratio was the best. And so I can't do THC commercially, but we can do Delta 8 in salves legally. So we started putting it in the salves, and the results are preliminary, but they're about the same thing. Really?
That's really cool.
Yeah, very cool. And so, what I've experienced with Delta 8 and other folks who have tried it are talking about, it's similar, but not quite the same feeling. And THCO and HHC, I've heard are different. I've heard they're a little bit more in line with regular THC. But I'm just excited about things that we can do with Delta 8 and these isomers that we can't legally do with THC on a commercial scale.
Yeah. And I think it's pretty cool too to find another application for it outside of just ingesting it, right? If Delta 8 THC can work similar to Delta 9 for pain relief, then that kind of adds an extra lifespan to it that a lot of other vendors aren't really selling at this time. Yeah.
When we get back to the shop, I'll give you some. We did a test batch, and like I said, preliminary is pretty exciting. Yeah.
Cool. Oregon has been on a bit of a drought. Same thing with Northern California. As a result of that, we've seen some hemp businesses, some hemp farms kind of go and shut down their operations. How has that affected Horn Creek Hemp, and what challenges has that put on the farm?
A lot. I mean, without water, you don't have much, and so you asked that question on an interesting day because we lost water last night. Right, so even though we're in a drought, we had a finite amount of water in the reservoir, and they were flowing it down the canal, and then last night it shut off. So now it's us and our water truck and our tanks, and we'll just do the best that we can. But plants need water, and when they get this big, they need a lot of water.
Especially as those buds are starting to fill out. How far away do you have to drive? How many trips do you have to go to actually get to the water source?
It's about 20 minutes, and then filling up is another 20 minutes to a half an hour, and then coming back is 20 minutes. So even though we got a 2,000 gallon truck, and it takes one person all day just running.
You gotta be passionate about it for real.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we were talking about earlier. If you're not passionate and you're just counting pennies, you're gonna get disillusioned at some point.
To piggyback off that point right there, what advice would you have for anyone who's either looking into home cultivation, or B, looking for more commercial cultivation, someone looking to start maybe a small scale farm in the hemp industry? What advice would you have for them? Maybe starting with about how much acreage do you run this farm on?
Well, the acreage we have 17 acres here and 24 at the other place. We have 8 in cultivation, and that's based on market conditions. It is really easy to, it's like you go to the buffet before, when you're hungry, you start piling stuff on. It's the same thing. People at the beginning of the season, they're like, oh, we're going to plant here, we're going to plant here, we're going to plant here. You can only plant as much as you can dry and process. And going beyond that is foolish, because something bad's going to happen. What I suggest to people who are either going to do a home cultivation or are interested in doing commercial is start small, but start. If you have room for 2 plants, plant 2 plants. You will learn more from those 2 plants than you will if you plant 500 and you can't keep an eye on all of them. And so just plant what you can and learn. If you're looking to do commercial, my advice at this point, I mean, it would be cynical and callous to say don't, because it is a hard landscape, the way the business is set up. But don't bite off too much. The people that went out of business, many of them went out of business because they overreached. They a lot of them spent all their money by the time it got to harvest and weren't able to bring in labor for harvest. And so I look at what can you do yourself. If everybody else bails, what can you do yourself? 300 plants? Great, do 300.
Cool. I know you mentioned the last time that we were out here that you're also getting ready to work on an indoor setup and get that going. What differences have you noticed so far in your time growing outdoor versus growing indoor flower?
When it's outdoor, somebody else is in charge. Lights, camera, water. It's like, okay, I'll just work with the framework you give me. When you're indoor, it's like you're God. And and I'm maybe not as proficient at being God as. I mean, it's hard, and if everything's, I take that back. If everything is going right, then it's fairly easy. But pests. It's just a whole different landscape, especially figuring out what they need. And we're so used to feeding the soil and letting the soil feed the plant that if you're doing indoor and you're in pots, it's a different, not sure how much mycorrhizae to add. It's a totally different skill set. So, but taking my own advice, which is just start. So we started, right? And the first run wasn't quite as successful as we'd hoped, but we learned a lot.
Cool. All right, cool. With that being said, can we go ahead and check out some of the different plants on the farm?
Yeah. Well, we'll start right here.
All right, cool.
This is one thing that really bothered me, not only for environmental reasons, but just for soil health, was all the plastic. And we had gone to biodegradable, but it still does the same thing. I mean, look at how hot we are right here, right now, right? So then you lay, even if it's white, but you lay a film over the top of this, and you would just cook all the good bacteria and bacillus and mycorrhizae. So this year we went to straw, and you'll see the downside, which is that we have more weed growth. But basically we start at one end and start weeding and move to this other end, and when we're done we go back and start again. But the soil is so much healthier. It's and it's loose. And previously when you pulled up the film mulch, it would be hard as a rock. It would just be super hard, baked dry. So really happy with this, and the plants are much healthier. Yeah.
And how sour Hawaiian haze are you growing in this row?
Well, the whole row, I think these 3 rows are all sour Hawaiian.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And we're finding as the wholesale market sort of winds down, or it reduces to a smaller number of wholesalers, we don't need those big volumes of any one flower.
Yeah.
Wholesalers, they want, if they're going to buy 20 pounds and they're going to sell it through their online store or their CBD shop, they want to know that there's more behind it, right? And so you kind of need to have that inventory, because if they build up a consumer base for it, they don't want to suddenly be told, "No, we don't have any more." Fact of the matter is, though, we just can't grow those huge volumes that we used to.
It's hard to grow at such a high volume and maintain quality, right? And be able to really manicure each plant,
And that's a great point, because what you'll also notice is, our spacing is now 12 feet at a minimum. Okay. And so it used to be 6 feet. That was pretty much standard. Yeah. But this time of year, if you were 6 feet, we couldn't fit through these rows.
Wow. Okay.
And so you can't get to each plant. You can't check out what's going on. Just watch the health. And plus, I like the airflow better. Nice. Yeah. Every time, that I would walk in an indoor facility, I just didn't have the same feel, right? The big plants, kind of moving around in the sunshine. I love this stuff.
Okay, so this here is the Oregon CBD field here.
We have sour Hawaiian haze. We have sour special sauce. Sour space candy, the good old standby. Everybody's got to have sour space candy. Yeah. And then sour lifter, and then we get into the East Fork, Oregon sweet gum, nice. Oregon guava, etc.
Nice.
And the funny thing is, you can kind of see it as you look down the rows. Suddenly you'll see something jump up or jump down in height. There's even with we have broad phenotypes because we're not cloning. Yeah. You can still see the characteristics from one cultivar to the next. Yeah.
And one thing too, with the different phenotypes growing from different seeds, I know we had talked about this last year, but during the 2021 harvest, was it 2021 harvest? Yeah, it was 2021 harvest. The years keep melting into each other. Did you find any certain phenols that maybe were standouts during harvest that you maybe separated or kind of isolated first from everything else, or did it all end up coming back together
in the harvest?
Yeah.
Or for the next planting season.
In the harvest. So did you find maybe any special phenols that you harvested that maybe this sour pineapple was a little bit stinkier than these sour pineapples over here?
Yeah, we did. And it was interesting, and we noted it. We still ended up blending them. with everything else. But this year we've got permission from all of the genetics providers to potentially do pheno hunting. So this is a big deal. Yeah, so I'm watching them, picking out the A team.
Yeah. That's gonna be pretty big right there. That's gonna be pretty major once you can really pheno hunt and catch some very special crosses. I know some companies have been maybe doing it before they were allowed permission, right? But I think the downside of that being they're breaking their contracts, right? But the positive side though is you're seeing more and more. If you plant 12 seeds, you might have one that's yeah.
And so there again, there was a company, I don't think they're operating any longer, who had great genetics in terms of the terpene profile, but they had a tendency to become hermaphrodites. So they weren't stable enough. But I know, or I believe, that Floyd at Hoku and Thomas at High Alpine have been working on those genetics. And I know they'll do the right things and get them going. But 3 of our cultivar suppliers are going to let us pheno hunt, so that I think that'll be exciting.
That's really cool. Looking forward to see what happens with that, especially if at the minimum it gives you a chance to maybe do an indoor nursery and just to get things started for the next season.
That's where the indoor comes in. That's the link from now to the next indoor grow.
So when we hear about sour lifter number 17 or something like that,
So I've been looking more and more at bourbons, right? And it's all about the characteristics of this grow and this harvest and this cultivar. And that's just really appealing rather than taking, what we're doing now is we're just making blends, right? Get a little bit of this flower, a little bit of this. But to be able to really focus on this one phenotype and cultivar, that's pretty exciting.
I think that's gonna be really big. Any chance as far as cultivars, we can expect maybe next grow season for you to check out some of the latest Oregon CBD seeds? I know there's what's it called? I think there's Cakeberry Brulee and the Sour Brulee. Have you checked out any of those genetics?
Just trying to see where they are. We had the Brulee. Yeah, we've got Brulee in Zone 1.
Okay.
And I think that was it for the new ones that we tried. I don't think Mango Tree is from them. I think Mango Tree is from Thomas.
I think that might be a Hoku. That might be.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. I can't keep track, which is a good thing, right? I got my list. Yeah. But the first year we grew one cultivar. That was it. That's all we did. Special sauce. Wow. Because we thought we were growing for extraction, right? Yeah. And so this has been fun. So it's neat to see other players sort of come into the game.
Really cool. Right, here we are once again in the flower field here at Horn Creek Hemp, and as you can see, some more mature flowers in development behind us right here. What strain do we have in front of or behind us?
This is Mango Tree.
Mango Tree, I believe that's one of the Hoku genetics. Floyd, shouts out to you. It's really cool to see just what all's been going on here. And speaking of flowers, Horn Creek in and of itself has kind of gotten its share of flowers as well in the form of awards. Can you tell us a little bit more about the awards Horn Creek has won, and do you plan on entering any more cups anytime soon?
I think that's really fun. The High Times Cup. The High Times Cup is kind of an unusually judged cup because, of course, it's sent out to anybody that pays their money. But my take is those are the people that we're selling to, right? So their opinion counts. Yeah. We enter the Oregon Growers Cup, the Golden Grow Awards, Cultivation Classic. I'm really excited about when it comes back. I think I told you about that one, right? Where Super Sour Space Candy won an award, their flagship award, which has always gone to high THC. And these folks didn't know it was CBD flower, right? Shout out to Oregon CBD and to CBD flower in general. We'll continue to do that. It's fun. It's exciting. It keeps the troops excited. They get their trophy case.
Cool. And for those who are seeing this for the first time, familiar with Horn Creek Hemp, where can they find your products?
We're primarily online. We do have retailers around the country. Send us your zip code and we'll tell you who they are, but we're primarily online at this point, direct to consumer.
Cool. And what's that website address?
horncreekhemp.com.
All right, cool. So if you're on the market looking for some cultivated CBD hemp flower, If you're looking for tinctures, you're looking for edibles, topicals, virtually anything you can want in the CBD market, go ahead and give a look to Horn Creek Hemp. And if you're ever in Jacksonville, Oregon, hey, come by and give them.
We'll show you around.
All right. See you guys later.